A Gracious Space, Spring. We read from this book once a week on Monday mornings at 11:30. And this time around, instead of just going sequential, I am picking essays based on what I feel like talking about. And today's is day 18. So if you've got your book, go pull it out and you can read along. Ready? Day 18. And the name of this talk is Care Less. I'd like to advocate an attitude not usually associated with teaching. I'm not suggesting you be careless in how you teach or lead your young charges. Rather, I suggest you care less. 2 words. Can you lean back? Put yourself on a porch swing and let your feet dangle as you glide back and forth without a care in the world while you homeschool. Can you relax your jaw, lighten your tone, and notice the puffy clouds going by? We're so invested in how our kids respond to what we offer them and how we guide them that sometimes we jinx the outcome. They stiffen or put up their defenses to avoid having to live up to our expectations. Think about it. Have you ever felt pressured to like a certain meal someone made for you, or felt you were going to owe such a big show of gratitude for a favor done you almost wished the person had just not helped you? This may be your kids. It's tough to know on some intuitive level that my mom's happiness is contingent on how well I enjoy the lesson or book or curricula or activity or field trip. This part of us that wants to have our own original experience resists and balks at the pressure to make the giving person feel good. You know what I'm talking about. Think of your mother or father-in-law or next-door neighbor who stands back waiting to be thanked. How do you feel about the service rendered? A little resentful? Kids have big emotions. They need room to feel and express. It's never about you. These reactions to books or lessons or strategies for learning, how can it be, really? Who doesn't want to be loved by a parent, to feel a parent's approval? Yet, they resist what we offer them when 2 things happen. 1, they feel they owe you more than they will get out of it for themselves. They feel nervous, too, that they can't live up to your expectations. So the solution? Care less. Unschoolers use a term called strewing. It is the act of strategically placing unattended items in the way of a learner, allowing a child to explore the item or book or movie or game unattended, independently, privately, without preamble or lesson. This is a way you can care less, get out of the way, allow the activity to unfold unsupervised. Another way, do the activity, workbook, lesson, game without the kids, without announcement. Get involved by yourself in front of them without a word. Another way, ask your child for help in any arena. Does this sound like a good program to you? If you could be in charge today, what would we be doing? Another way, openly judge mistakes and flops with a sense of humor. That collection of manipulatives must have been created by someone with 12 fingers. If the house is filled with tension, try one of these. Disappear. Go into the other room and read a book or page through a catalog or make yourself a snack. Grab a blanket and curl up on the couch and doze. Head outdoors, put the baby in the backpack. Walk, exercise. Do not judge a day or week or month gone wrong. Care less. You have tomorrow, and tomorrow. You have plenty of time. Take the time you need, trust the process, and care less about the minutia of today. Quote of the day. Amazing the timing of this. These same types of encouraging thoughts hit my heart last night as I was considering the day. It was a message of ease and rest sent by the one who is our rest, Kim Hewitt. Sustaining thought. Caring less accomplishes more. Care less. This is a lesson that you learn over the course of parenting, over the course of a lifetime. This need to have a sure outcome and to feel secure in the choices your children make never goes away, apparently. My mother reminded me that even at age 50, when I was getting a divorce, she still had to fret and worry about my choices. This never goes away. You will always have this profound investment in your children. The temptation is to grab hold, to direct, to warn, to protect, to prevent. But what would happen if we cared less? You know, you can't control these little free radicals, these little human beings that are going to make choices that don't suit your temperament or your vision for their future. What are you going to do when they get old enough to really execute those and you have no say? Stay up all night? Fret? Be the antagonistic mother or mother-in-law? Or can you support the person without evaluating the choice, the objective, the philosophy, the outcome? It's really hard when you're invested in their education and feel responsible for it. I know I do. I wanted to ensure that I was creating maximum opportunity for my children at all times to choose any career path, any outcome. I wanted them to feel they could go to college or could not go to college. I wanted them to feel that they could be in the maths and sciences, not just the humanities. And in our family, the humanities were strong and math and science was not as strong. So I felt responsible, guilty, worried, afraid. I had more anxiety around ensuring the success of math and science than I did English, because English was a natural part of our lives. It was so easy to focus on my kids getting the right math education and worrying when they weren't, and then feeling guilty when they told me I hadn't done a good job, because I did not know how to provide that in a way that was comfortable and natural to me. And isn't that what happens? Your child makes some choice that's not comfortable to you. I don't want to go to college. Well, what do you do if you have a child who makes that declaration and both parents are college professors? It feels like an invalidation. It feels like they are judging the very career and passion of your life by saying, well, really, I just want to go into a trade. We all spend so much energy running our children through our own experiences. And don't we also want to prevent them from making what we see as disastrous mistakes? Marrying too young or the wrong person, choosing to opt out of this thing they've prepared for. Maybe they've just been a fabulous pianist their whole lives, and then they hit college and they realize they don't like piano anymore. They used it up, they're done. They want to go into, something like sociology. What do you do with that? What do you do with a child who wins a full scholarship to college and gets to that college and hates it? I have two friends that happened to. One of them left a full scholarship ride from Ohio State, and the other one left a scholarship for soccer to return home. Left Indiana back to Colorado, is going to City College. How do you cope with that? What about the child who goes off on this really great path, wants to be an engineer, and then they get into engineering and they don't like it, and you've already invested money? I invested 2 years into linguistics, and that's not what Noah ended up wanting to do with his life. What do we do when we hit that crossroads? These are the ones that are waiting for you. You get to practice now with the 10-year-old who just doesn't want to do copy work. How are you going to handle that? Are you going to raise and escalate the tension in the family over this one paragraph of copy work? Is that going to be the hill you die on? Part of us has to care less. We have to look at what the child is presenting, take that seriously, and then give our children the gift of some choice, of the feeling of being in charge of their own destiny. One of the ways that that happened in my family is, will you be surprised by this? Conversation. I'm a big talker, in case you hadn't noticed. And so I would try to lay out what I thought some of the options might be. For example, I might say, well, if you choose not to take chemistry in high school, that might foreclose some college opportunities, because some colleges are really going to want you to have had those 2 years of lab sciences. I can't say that they all will, and I can't say that there isn't another path to college, and I can't say that you couldn't take chemistry at 18 at the junior college and then apply to college, but I just know the traditional path includes chemistry. So while we're talking about whether to take it or not, I want you to think about that. I want you to at least know that's the information. But they're short-sighted, and they can't always have the same appreciation for what the outcome will be. It's like student debt. Some kids really grasp, oh, $30,000 sounds like a lot to pay back. And other kids are like, what's the big deal? Everyone has debt. So you look at this child who says, when am I ever going to use writing? I play online video games and I don't need it. And I really love numbers. When am I ever going to write? Do we have the capacity to test that theory? Or are we just going to coerce the child into subjection? You know, they're submitting to your ideas of what is best for them. And how do we get there then? How do we navigate that middle ground where your child doesn't want to do the thing you know they need? It's an ongoing predicament. This isn't something you solve once for all time. You might one day choose to just let it go, to care less, to let your child just not write. And then you might have a different day, right? A different day where you think this child could handle a little challenge. And so you sweeten the deal. You think about, how can I make this thing he doesn't want to do more engaging, more interesting, less tedious, less ornery? And that's the key. You cannot make a once-for-all-time rigid decision because you have fluctuating personalities. We have yours, but we also have the child's. And then we also have the social context that we live in. And those things are constantly shifting. I think what was challenging for me as a home educator was that each of these specific homeschool identities or philosophies seemed to be inflexible to include anything else. And what I discovered was there were seasons where really letting my kids have their head and listening to their desires and really allowing them to run with the things they were curious about and to ignore the things they hated was perfect for them. And then there were other times where people were a little bit ornery and needed a little direction, or participation is more what I like to call it. You know, collaboration, shared energy. They could draft off of some of my energy. And in those moments, I might be able to introduce those things that were more routine, a little bit more skill-based. But then I wanted to be more invested. I can't do both. You can't say to your kids, be invested in this thing that you hate, and I'm not going to help you. If it's a struggle, that's when your investment is the most important. But care a little less about what it means about you. I shared last week, you can't both require cooperation and a smile. You're going to get one or the other. You either get to create happiness or you get to create this requirement. And so in that moment that you are paying attention to what you think needs to happen and you're requiring, in that moment, care less about the smile. Care less about happiness. And I was with some friends the other night, and the husband is a good friend of mine, and he said, you know, when I was growing up, my dad would say things like, you're going to wash the dishes and you're going to like it. Isn't that a classic parental statement? We've all seen it in cartoons, on sitcoms, right? But what if we pause for a moment and we just think about what that is saying to a child? It's saying, I am stripping you of all your agency. Not only are you going to do what I say because I'm bigger and I have more power over you, but you're also going to, on the surface, pretend like you like it, enough to persuade me that you are, in fact, liking it. What level of dysfunction are we growing in our children when we do that? We're literally training them how to pretend. We're not teaching them to find value or to like it. We're literally saying, don't you dare show me that you don't like it. Aren't those different? I remember years ago being at this one, housekeeping. I perennially went to housekeeping seminars, email lists. It's not my strength. It's not natural to me. And so one of the things that I remember is the woman who ran this thing, Emily Barnes, she was wonderful. She talked about her kids washing the dishes. And she said, you know, no one likes to wash the dishes. So why wouldn't you make this a pleasant experience? So what she would do is light candles, and she would throw change in the sink underneath all the soap. And then she'd put the dishes on top. And whichever kid did the dishes got to keep all the change in the bottom of the sink. They got to look for it, find it. You know, she put it in the glass, put it in the sink, put it in the pot. And she'd light candles, and they would have this little private moment with candlelight and change in the bottom of the sink. Isn't that so much better than this notion of, and you will like it? That's what I call sweetening the deal. Somebody says there's another parental phrase, you don't have to like it, you just have to get it done. Well, what if we examine that phrase? So now we've made comfort with the idea, peace with the idea that the child doesn't like it. But now what we're saying is violate your sense of pleasure and happiness and get it done. For what purpose? For me? Or for that child? Have you ever thought about what you're teaching when you make that statement? We think what we're teaching is that Puritan work ethic. Oh, they'll learn how to get it done no matter how they feel. But you know what? You pay attention to your feelings all the time. Some days when you really should go shopping and you're at the very end of all your food, you still don't go because you really don't want to. The thought of getting in the car at that hour, at that time of day, you're like, we'll just make do one more day. I'm not going to do the laundry today. The thought of going down those stairs again, just can't face it. Don't we do that? And sure, there are things where the pressure mounts and we have like the tax deadline and we make ourselves do it when we quote unquote don't want to. But we're motivated by an external that matters to us. With children, we treat ourselves like we're the external. Like my deadline is important to you. And what we're really wanting to train and teach and model is for the child to find their own incentive. Does that make sense? It's something we're talking about in the Homeschool Alliance this month. Tomorrow night, we're doing a webinar on assessment. And the key to assessment is internal, not external. And I'm going to talk about that. How do we help our children own their own goals? How do we help our children actually care about copy work as opposed to you don't have to like it, you just have to get it done? One of the things that brain researchers Renata and Michael Kane say is that pleasure, enjoyment is critical to learning. It is the key to your brain holding on to information. I used to always say this, joy is the best teacher. And now we have brain research to back it up. Here's why. Because joy means everything is open and available. You're not shuttering any aspect of who you are against it for self-protection. You know how when you do something you don't like doing, part of you is arguing with it while you're doing it. You're not actually settling in. You're not doing as good a job. You can't learn from it. When you are happy, you actually open up. There's a part of you that's always engaged because it's bringing you pleasure. So how do we get more of that into our homeschools? Well, today's strategy is care less. Carrie says, what about denying themselves to serve and love others? One of the things about that, though, is it's not service if you are doing it because someone made you. That's not the same thing as service. Service is a free offering. That's me saying, I want to do something on your behalf. Someone making me do it, well, then it's the person who's making me do it who's providing the service. And they're just using me to that end. Service in a family comes not just from requirements or chores. It actually comes from a place of generosity. And the generosity has to start with parents. One of the things that was brand new to me years and years ago when I was first on some unschooling list was this notion of asking for help. And it's something that has become sort of a pillar in my relationship with my children. I realized that I went from saying, hey, you guys all made this mess. you need to clean it up. Or, hey, I made dinner, it's your job to clean up. As though those were axiomatic. And what I discovered was that actually they wanted the opportunity to participate in the family in a meaningful way, but they had their own ideas of what that was. And if I really needed someone to do the dishes, maybe I could frame it differently so that they knew they were actually being helpful, not just doing what I said. So I started asking for help. Instead of saying, you have to clean the dishes, I would say things like, there's a whole sink full of dishes. It would mean a lot to me if someone could help me get them done. And, for a while, nobody said yes because I had spent too much time in the other camp. You can't ask for help and have no not be a real answer. It has to be a real answer. A real valid response is no, I don't want to get off this computer and help you. But what happened over time is they started to realize that I was being generous. Often I would clear their plates and say so. I'd say, here, let me get that for you. I want to clean that up for you. Oh, it looks like it's a little cluttered over here and it's hard for you to play your game. I'm going to clean that up for you. And I still remember the first night when Liam said to me, Mom, I'll do the dishes, but I just need to beat level 2. If you can wait, I'll do them after. I said, wow, that would be awesome. And do you know, after that point, there were many nights where I was just getting ready to start cleaning up the kitchen before I went to bed, and Liam would say to me, Mom, I'm going to be up for another couple of hours. Why don't you go to bed, and I'll wash the dishes when I'm done before I go to bed. And sure enough, that's what he would do. Now, that's service. But it didn't come from me explaining to him the need to serve. It started with recognizing that I need help in this family. There are 7 of us, and I can't do it all. And if you pitch in, it makes my life happier. You make me a happier mother. You make me feel like I'm a valuable member of this family. And that takes time to get that momentum going. Now let me share with you a flip side of that story. Katrin, who was not as enthusiastic about helping, often opted for no. There were days when she would do the dishes or clean up after herself, but she opted for no a lot. And it was after she came home from college that now she takes over the kitchen. It is her joy to clean my kitchen. I'm not promising you that this will happen just because you suddenly decide to use it as a strategy. It has to come from within. Service comes from within. Where I sometimes think we make the mistake is that we're looking for a strategy to get what we need instead of doing what I call going belly up, just telling the truth. I feel overwhelmed. This feels like a lot. I've made a lot of meals this week and nobody cleans them up. Those are the feelings we have. One of the things you can do is take care of yourself and model that. You could say on day 5, where no one's ever helped you, without being a martyr, don't be a martyr, just tell the truth. Hey, you guys, there's a lot of food in the fridge and in the pantry, and I'm not really in the mood for cleaning dishes tonight, so help yourself to dinner. I've made myself a little meal, and I'm going to sit over here and eat alone. You can do that. Or you can say, I want to make dinner for everyone, but the thought of doing the dishes after is overwhelming me. Do I have a partner? Is there a bargain I can strike here where I'll make dinner and someone else will do the dishes? Do you see what I'm saying? This is a flipped way of talking. It's telling the truth of your experience. It's not the parenting role where you tell people what to do and then expect them to do it and think they're learning a grand lesson. The lessons are learned through living. And we all have martyrs in our lives that we don't appreciate. There is a complete change that occurs when we all start to own our experience and we don't blame other people for it. So that's just dishes. Dishes, right? Most people even have dishwashers now. I loved moving home from the third world, from Morocco, and having a dishwasher. I was like, who would ever complain about dishes again? This is the easiest thing ever. I felt that way about dryers too. I'm like, washing machines, dryers, and dishwashers changed my life. I have nothing to complain about. Now, in my family, one of the things that we did make happen is I put my kids in charge of washing their own clothes starting in 4th grade. So for a whole year, I would do laundry with the child for all of 4th grade, like 10 years old. And every time it was time to do laundry, we did it together for a year. And then when the year was over, here's what I said to my kids. It's up to you now. You can wash whenever you want. And they will tell you this. I never hounded them to wash their clothes. If they wore smelly, dirty clothes, they wore smelly, dirty clothes. I taught them how to do it, and then it was up to them to decide when and if they did it. And you know what? They all have their own routine around laundry. This is what it means to live in harmony with other people. And I think as we think about homeschooling, if we get down to the nitty-gritty now of certain assignments they should complete, certain subjects they should study, we want to think the same way. What does it look like to lend, an abundance of service and support? A child who's struggling with copywork. Do we sit next to them? Do we get them a little stand to hold up the words? Do we hand them a better pen? My favorite pen as a kid had a furry side and smelled like perfume, and it was pink. And I did so much schoolwork with that pink pen. Maybe that's all that's required is a better pen, something that kind of gets you excited. My running partner and I were joking about how our best runs are the day after we get new running clothes. Literally, you just can't wait to get outside. You want to wear your cute little outfit or you want to wear your brand new shoes, and it makes you go farther. Well, if that's true for adults, how true is it for children? So, thinking about caring less then, give your children the opportunity to have some latitude while they're discovering how to challenge themselves, how to cooperate, how to move their educations forward. Take what they say to you seriously. Serve them. Deny yourself and serve them. I know you do if you're a homeschool parent. You can do it again. You can experience that again. You can even narrate that. You can say, wow, I so don't want to do this today. I'm going to do it anyway because I know it'll make your life better. I occasionally see a poetry tea time Instagram photo where someone says the child woke up ready to have poetry tea time and the mom thought, it's the last thing I want to do. And then the child takes over, sets the table, makes the scones, gets the books, like that. That could be you. That could be your life. Because all of us have varying levels of enthusiasm any given day. And our job is not to shoehorn our children into a vision of them that we had when they were babies in our arms, but to deal with the real. It's another Brave Writer slogan. Deal with the real. Deal with the real. If I am maxed out, I had 5 kids, right? My kids didn't ask to be in a family of 7. They didn't ask to live in this house. They didn't ask for a yard that was bigger than Canada. They didn't ask to become mowing experts or bathroom experts. And yes, I can say under the rubric of family, they have to participate and it's good for them. Of course it's good for them. But I can at least start from the place that I gave them this. And these aren't their values. And their cooperation in the family system is because I need it. They may be fine with grass that's 2 feet tall. They might not buy a house with a yard. They just got bored into this thing. So the acknowledgement, the recognition that we're asking our kids to conform with our ideals and our vision is important. And part of the way that you can get over that hump is to care less about their attitudes and care more about that connection, that relational aspect of your family and your homeschool. Don't tie your self-worth to how well your kids execute your plans. I'm going to say that again. Don't tie your self-worth to how well your kids execute your plans. Your self-worth can't depend on that. There are days when those things are going to come together perfectly. Your child will do all the things you wanted them to do and you'll feel proud and good. On those days, we call that a payday. #payday. Just pat yourself on the back, go to bed happy. Because there will be other days that aren't like that. And you'll get some kind of momentum going. a mixture of paydays and frustrating days. But somewhere in that mix, there's you and there's your child, and you cannot tie who you are to how well that child turns out. You can't. It's almost impossible not to on some level. But it's the best thing you can do. All right, so where are we here on time? Oh, very good. Amazingly, I can see comments this time. So I'm going to see if you have any questions. Lene says, I have mostly done what you describe about inviting and helping and being honest, and you are making me feel better about caring less. Sometimes it's trickier, oh yes, when my husband isn't on board. You know, that's exactly true. And I'm not going to address marriage per se, but let me say this. All the people in the family matter. All the people matter. There isn't a right way that's yours, and then a wrong way that's everyone else's or your spouse's. And so some heart-to-heart conversations about all this needs to exist, but it has to come from the place of need and honesty. It can't come from shoulds and this overarching structure, and that if everybody would just get in line, we'd all be happier. Because they would have already gotten in line if it would make them happier. So there's got to be this give and take. I remember years ago the language of the emotional bank. Filling up the emotional bank and then withdrawing from it. If your family culture is expect, fake a smile, pretend to smile, do it because you have to, do it out of, this need to be a good kid, those are withdrawals on the emotional bank. You have to build up trust and happiness and a sense of well-being in order to say something like, I know it's not fun. We can't afford someone to mow our yard. Everyone's going to have to take a turn. This is what's going to happen. I promise to buy everybody, ginger ale. You can wear headphones, but this is what's going to happen. If you're going to say that to your family and not buy the lawn mowing service, you got to be careful how many of those you do. That cannot be the daily lived experience all day long, every day. You have to be willing to trust that if you pull a deposit, it's not going to bankrupt the account. So deposit. So that when you do have those things that you require, and in some families, it's just a financial necessity, then when you do that requirement, at least own up to it. Say, I know that you do not value mowed lawns. And I know you feel like we're forcing you, and it's not your favorite thing. It's not my favorite thing either. This is the solution that we've arrived at, and here's how I'm going to sweeten the deal, and then live into it and don't expect happiness. Care less about them being happy about it, and be grateful that they cooperate. How do you care less without being terrified? Yeah, you do hear the lawn mowing service in the background. Greatest day of my life, because I live alone, so now I can't have anyone mow. So yes, absolutely. Yeah, I'll share about deposits made, and then somebody says, how do I care less without being terrified? You are terrified when you care less. I will just share that with you right now. I literally have been terrified many recent times. And so what I have to do is re-up in the morning. I have to breathe. I have to recite to myself all of the things I know to be true. I made choices. Not all of them were perfect. My children will not make perfect choices. Everything that was available to me for my growth and development is available to them. All of the options are still on the table, but they may not happen in the sequence and timing that I fantasized they should happen in. My vision for the future is not the only successful vision for the future. This moment in time that I want to seize, I can back off of for an hour, or a half a day, or a week. Sometimes just creating that little bit of release right at the point of tension opens space for change. You don't have to commit to never doing copy work. You can just back off today when you see the tension rise and ask yourself, what's my goal? What's my child feeling? How can I reanalyze, reinterpret this? Sorry about the lawnmower. Does this make sense? What else? Deposits. So Jenny is asking, how do I make deposits? Great question. Eye contact, physical touch, collaboration, wanting my children to be happy. Eye contact, physical touch, collaboration, and wanting my children to be happy. Think about your primary love relationship, your marriage, your partner, your mother, your best friend, whoever that person is that you count on. Why are you with them? Because on some level, they want your happiness. We don't make friends with people who are out to undermine us. We don't marry people who are out to undermine us. Or if we do, we leave them, ultimately, or we emotionally close off from them. But our deepest connections, the people we value the most in our lives, are the ones who want our good. And they want the good that we want. It's not separate. It's not like there's a good over here for me to get to and I don't want it. These have to be in union. So our goal then is to be that person for our children. They have to know that you want them to experience their lives as meaningful and pleasurable, not just successful and efficient. We put such a high premium on efficiency, on completing, on getting somewhere, and not often enough what this current moment feels like. You know, my famous story when Noah was in 4th grade and I had the perfect, lesson plans, every box with notes, loving notes. I mean, I was a nurturing mom. I wasn't a hardcore planner, scheduler, disciplinarian, but I had this schedule. And it eventually felt oppressive to him, even with all the love I was slathering on. Whereas for Johanna, it felt like true connection, true love, true support. So yeah, it's going to vary child to child. Any words to moms whose children are young adults and are currently pulled away, trying other life choices? Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah, so when you have a child who's making choices that really don't fit with what you thought you were raising them for, therapy. That would be my advice. 12-step groups and therapy. Somewhere where you can get support. The only way back with kids who have estranged themselves is to be a welcome mat for when they show up. You can reach out in love. I remember my brother and my mom were estranged for about 3 years, and my mom literally left a phone message on his answering machine once a month for those years saying, I love you, hope you're doing well. And she never held him accountable for not calling her. And when he finally came around, he revealed that those calls, he looked forward to them every week. He just wasn't in a place where he could receive it and do anything with it. That's what it looks like. You can't control human beings. I mean, we want to, but we can't. Yeah, my mom's an awesome mom, by the way. She's an awesome mom. And, part of it's our ego investment. One of the reasons that we end up feeling like we're upset with a choice is it doesn't match our ego aspiration. I want my child to be valedictorian, or I want my child to get married and have babies, or I want my child to aspire to this grandiose objective, and then they tell you, no, that's not what I wanted. I do want to work at a fast food restaurant and live on my own. And you're like, that wasn't in my plan. And then you feel embarrassed, like, can I admit that my child quit college? My oldest child quit college twice. Can I actually say that out loud as a homeschooling mother, homeschooling business owner, homeschool coach? Some of it's ego. We have to let it go. Did you have times, moving, job changes, etc., when you feel like all you have done is to make withdrawals? Yes. Yes, absolutely. I mean, hello, I'm divorced. Can you imagine what those years were like? It's really hard. And so that's why it's so important when you aren't in one of those seasons to really make the good seasons good. One of my favorite conversations I had recently was with Noah. And he told me that when he looks back on his childhood, what he remembers is pretty much all the good stuff. He knows what was hard about growing up in our family. But there was a spirit of, I don't know what the right word would be, a desire for people to have a good life. That really was my objective. That in this moment, that homeschool, while it's happening, is good. Not just that the outcome at the far end would be good, but that like today, it's good to wake up in this house and be with these people. That was my goal. And it was gratifying to hear that that got through, even when there was pain. You know? And we did some of those things. We moved cross country and we were poor and I had struggles in my marriage at times. So those were realities as well. You don't have to get it all right. You don't. You have to be present, alert, connected. And all kinds of stuff is going to go wrong anyway because you do not have control. So caring less is one strategy for what to do when those moments occur. And I live it too, day by day. I'm like you. My gosh, exactly like you. Completely. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah, love is love. It has to be felt as love, though. I mean, we all know the mother-in-law or the mother who says she loves you and you just don't feel it. One of the ways to know whether or not love is effective in the family is whether or not someone feels loved. It's not the same to say, I love you so much, this is why I'm protecting you and making you do all this. Because if the experience is just of oppression and coercion, they don't experience being loved. They don't know what love is. They only know pressure. So even though you're motivated by the right things, it doesn't mean they're experiencing it the way you think it's coming across. Yeah, you definitely don't have to get it all right. You can't anyway. You can't anyway. Stephanie, the other coach for the Homeschool Alliance, and I talk all the time about how we've learned so much, we want a do-over, right? Like there are things I wish I could do differently now or that I had known. And so that's what all of these talks are. That's what this book is. It's me sharing with you the things that help you feel more effective than even I felt at the time. Yeah. Ah, Paula. Someone said that as a child, she never heard I love you, but she knew she was loved. She felt loved. Isn't that beautiful? That's amazing. Although I wish they'd say I love you too. Paula says she doesn't have the careless ability right now. Okay, so I love the honesty of that. I love the honesty of that. I totally get that, by the way. I have lived that. I'm still living it at moments where you just get worked up. You can feel all that energy ramping up and you go into, kind of that flustered mode. Yeah. That's okay. Just get support. The other thing I will say is this. You need it too. You need to know you're loved somewhere. You need to have a space where you know that the real you can show up in all of your anxiety, your sense of loss. I mean, it's a loss when your kids don't do the thing you imagined they would do. Even if both things they're doing are of equal value, but one was your preferred vision, that's rough, You raise your kids to be adults and you always imagine being a grandmother and then your child says, I don't ever want to have children. What is that? Even though both are valid choices, there's that loss. You get to feel that and you get to feel it keenly. It just means you don't have to dump it on the heads of your children. You can go somewhere else where you're loved and valued and safe and get the support you need because we all need it. You can't do this stuff perfectly